So, Rick, I really appreciate you taking the time today to chat and connect with me.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. Anything I can do to help anyone else who has struggled through surviving a stroke and trying to live their life graciously, I can understand. Anything I can do to make life easier for them, I'd be glad to do it. People have helped me along the way, and it's been critically important. It's it's been the most eye-opening part of this. Everyone is really in their hearts really nice. They do want to help. The problem is if you're an A personality like me, you don't you don't want to accept the help, and one has got to begin doing that. And I've learned a lot by accepting the help. It makes people feel good when they can help you. So okay, let me talk about my what happened to me. Now
Yeah.
prior to the stroke, I was very active. I'm not a great athlete, but I'm pretty good, probably better than average in
Okay.
most things. My handicap before the stroke, my golf handicap was a 9.56 or something, so it was okay. And I was not a great golfer, obviously, but um, that was just one thing. My primary sport though was skiing,
Okay.
and I just love to ski. I spent 2 years in Telluride, Colorado, ski bumming, which was an important part of my life. It was part of freedom and just getting all the exercise and fresh air possible. And
Mhm.
that sort of kind of defines my life. I've just always been active outdoors, whether it's sailing, skiing, biking, golfing, hiking, kayaking, you name it.
Mhm.
But I was very fit and I was very fit. I also ran some very successful businesses where my degree is in forestry, and I apparently had an aptitude for investments in finance. So
Okay.
I, I developed a program where high net worth families and large institutions such as pension funds and endowments could invest in forest land in a meaningful way. So I pioneered that asset class, and it turned out to work out very well for our investors. As a consequence, I got a little bit of the profits, and have done very well financially. So I was very, very fortunate. I live on a beautiful place on the coast of Maine in Acadia National Park, and I've always been very active. Now, right up until the stroke, I was out about 3 or 4 days before the stroke. I was up on my property in Maine by myself. My wife was back in our home in Norwell, Mass. And so I gathered up the two dogs and we drove back. And fortunately, it all went well. I came back, and that was on a Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
And on Thursday, the Thursday evening, was having a nice dinner with my wife, and even know what I was eating and drinking. But it was a wonderful dinner. I stood up to take the dishes to the kitchen, and I got to the kitchen and the sink, and all of a sudden my left side was completely paralyzed. So it was very clear. It went right down. You're right. It went right down the median, and just everything just was paralyzed. So I was falling, and my wife caught me, drug me into a chair, and of course I was slurring my words. I couldn't swallow, and I couldn't talk. But the stroke, of course, was on my right side.
Sure.
And so I was able to talk fairly quickly. So there was no aphasia, of course. And
Follow,
my
following this.
mind was completely fine. I didn't notice anything. I had no pain, but I was obviously in pretty bad shape. My wife called the 911. I told her, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. Just tuck me into bed, and I'll be fine tomorrow."
I'll sleep
And
it off.
yeah, and she said, "Nope, I don't think so." She had the phone and she called 911 before she hung up. I swear they were there, which was very important because
Okay.
our paramedics were very well versed in strokes, and
Okay.
they could figure out what it was immediately. Not only that was a stroke, but the kind of stroke I had. It was ischemic, of course,
An
and
ischemic. Yep.
and it also affected. It was in my aorta, so it was in the I think it's called midbrain part of the aorta where it begins to branch out,
Okay.
and that was clogged 100%. So they took me. The ambulance took me to the local hospital, which was only about 20 miles away. I went in there. They looked at me. They examined me, and then put me back in the hospital into an ambulance and sent me to Mass General. I was at Mass General within 2 hours of the stroke, and which was very fortunate. They did some major surgery. I forget the name of the surgery now, but it's where they go in through your groin and go up through your arteries that way, and they were able to grab the plug and pull it out. And they also gave me the TPA, of course, to help
Okay.
break up anything else. And that seemed to help a lot. I gained a lot back quickly, but I still could not move anything on my left side. I couldn't move my fingers or my toes. So they told me that I told them I had to leave very shortly to go to um, Park City for a 6 week ski trip we had planned. And I didn't know it, but in the back apparently they said, well, let's hope we can get him out of here to a rehab hospital, not to a nursing home. My wife overheard them say that. So So she told me, well, Rick, I don't think we'll be going skiing this year. Let's just get you back on top of things. So that began the whole process of recovering, whatever that means.
And Rick, thank you so much for kind of laying out essentially what your experience was going through it. Remind me how old you were at the
I
time,
was
and
59 at the time,
you were 59. Okay.
and my doctor said that I had the condition of someone about 45 was how
Okay.
he would put me. So he
Physical
said I was
condition.
the
Yeah.
he said I was of anyone that's walked through his door and the entire time he'd been a doctor. He said I'm the last one he would have suspected could have a stroke,
Hmm.
but
Whoa.
we hadn't checked my carotid in over a year, and
Okay.
so that must have been plugging up.
I see.
But I was very fortunate, and I could talk. I could talk easily. The doctors kept asking me the day of the week, the month of the year, the president,
Hmm.
and one said, "Hey Rick, can you tell me what this is?" And I said, "You mean your necktie?" He said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "Well, what color is it?" I said, "Well, it's green." My God, it's fluorescent green. It's a butt ugly green. I can't believe you wear that. And he said, "It's my favorite tie. It's Hermes." I don't care if it's Hermes. It's just ugly. That just means someone paid too much for it. And he turned to the other people and he said, "I think he's going to be all right." But my governor was clearly damaged in that process. My wife was so embarrassed. I told very off-color jokes, which I don't usually do, and and everything seemed to be fine. Now that evening, I found that my saliva glands were overactive,
Okay.
and I couldn't swallow, so it was just I was gagging a lot, and
This
so
was
they
leading into the stroke. That was
no,
something
no, this was after the stroke. This
after
is
the
while I
stroke.
was in the hospital.
Okay.
I'm at Mass General's ICU, neuro ICU unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very fortunate. I was at a hospital like that that could do this special procedure.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no doubt that they saved my life. Now the doctor who oversaw the surgery said it wasn't him, it was my wife who saved my life. Said she got you, you made sure you got here quickly.
Yeah.
And then she approved the process. He said many spouses just don't dare do that. Said when I told you that if I did this, you had a 10% chance of dying. That scares you.
Sure.
And she said, if he doesn't do it, what's his chances? And he said, well, it's over 25%, probably close to 50. And
Mm.
so that was an easy decision.
No.
I like the odds better, so we
Yeah.
did that. And so I was fine. Again, no pain, but I just kind of a terribly numb feeling on my left side. It felt like the whole left side was almost dead.
Hmm.
But my right side was perfectly fine. And
Wow.
so a week later, they were able to get me out of the ICU unit and into a rehab hospital. I tried so hard to move my big toe so that they would do that.
Yeah.
And they told me it's your feet that are going to get you out of here. Once you can start moving your foot, then we'll be able to get you out of here.
Okay.
Rehab hospital. So
Okay.
I did that, and I went to a hospital in the Boston area rehab, and it was very, very good. People were great. The caregivers were tremendous. The the OPs and the SP, and all of the therapists were just incredible, and everyone taking care of us. Um, so that did a lot to pick my spirits up. And
Absolutely.
and my wife brought me a couple of books early on. One, of course, was My Stroke of Genius by
Yeah.
oh, wait a moment, and I highly recommend that. I
Yeah.
know I got to think
I forget
something
the
Taylor.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
forget the author too. But yeah, that's a exceptional read.
it is. Yes, it was the first thing I read when I
Okay.
was in the hospital. Now the problem is I can't turn pages. I couldn't hold pages, so I had to figure out a way to read it without the pages turning on me. So it was really difficult. Um, and but I did that, and I did crossword puzzles and
Okay.
Sudoku,
Hmm.
just to keep my mind moving,
Keep your mind sharp. Yeah.
which I think helped with that. And I
Okay.
was able to walk in about 2 weeks. Not well, but I was able to walk again.
Hmm.
I couldn't do anything with my hand or my arm very much, but at least I could walk. And I
Yeah.
could walk very well when I got out of the hospital just before Christmas.
Okay.
So this happened just before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm in the hospital, and I'm just asking them, begging my therapist to help me get out by Christmas so I could spend Christmas at home. I'd
Mhm.
missed Thanksgiving, of course.
Right.
So, and we did, we made it. I got out, I think the 23rd. So
Wow.
I got
Right
home.
before.
I was home. It was great. Yes. Um,
So
Now,
you were in ICU for
about a week. Yes.
and then you were immediately transferred from ICU into the rehab facility for.
Actually, I spent one night at the neuro clinic in the
Okay.
neurological area at West General.
Yep.
Just one night, and then they took me out. So I wasn't too bad, and only more than 3 weeks in the rehab hospital was phenomenal. The doctors were very, very pleased with that, as was I, and they expected full recovery in short order, and I did too. I kept saying, another 2 weeks, I'm going to be back to everything. Everything, I'll be able to do everything, including skiing double diamond
Right. You're trying to get
trails.
back to
I wanted to
the
get back to Park
city.
City.
Yeah.
In fact, while in the intensive care, I asked my wife if she had heard back from a place we were looking to rent. That's when she said, "Well, let's get you in a rehab hospital first.
Yeah.
Then we'll figure out whether we can ski again."
Good.
So, um,
So you made it
so
back. You made it back just before Christmas, and so
right
you're home.
now, in that period that I was in the hospital, the I had we had two dogs, two yellow labs. One was older and sort of served as the mentor to the younger one.
Okay.
And my wife called me and said he's having trouble breathing. So well, we'll find out what's up. She went to the vet and she brought him over to see me and said, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to put him down. So, and she was so close to that dog, as was I. And
Yeah.
so she goes, I've got my husband in the rehab hospital. Looks like he's gonna survive. Now I've lost my dog. Um, so other than that, Debbie, how are your holidays?
You know,
Sorry about
Rick, I think it brings up just such a important component to this as well of, stroke is obviously incredibly traumatic for you as the individual or whoever experiences the stroke, but it's equally, if not more, challenging for the network around the
Oh, it
individual.
is. Oh, that's so important, Jake. My poor wife, what she had to deal with, now she's got to deal with a partially crippled person that thank goodness he survived. And what will I be able to do?
Right.
Because we have 20 acres on the water in Maine, and I had built a huge barn,
Mhm.
and I had landscaped the place, so with a lot of gardens and a pond that we dug, just a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But a lot of maintenance that I didn't mind. I loved doing that, so that was good. Now,
Yeah.
how are we going to get that work done?
Yeah.
Um, So Debbie saw it upon herself. Plus, now she had to take care of all the finances and
Yep.
getting the cars inspected and all that stuff. A
Yeah.
lot of work for her. Plus, she wasn't going to be able to do the things we enjoyed. Now, the chance of going skiing, and she was a great skier. She's a great skier too, and a pretty good golfer. We love to do that. Love to do that stuff.
Yeah.
It's been very rough on her.
Yeah.
And my friends, one of my close friends, one of the men I ski bummed and Telluride with,
Mhm.
he came to see me. He said, Rick, I've been living my life vicariously through you these last few years and coming out to visit you while you were in Park City to ski. He said, and now what am I going to do? Who's going to duck the ropes with me and let the ski patrol try to catch us? And I looked at him, I said, Norm, I'm 59 and you're 63. I think at our age, we probably should stop ducking the ropes and skiing out of bounds. Besides those ski patrol, I bet they were never trying to catch us. They were
Sure.
catching those two young dudes who had really been messing things up. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Rick. It's thank God for the Debs in this world.
oh, I'll tell you, it's amazing. And my
Yeah.
friends, so Norm said, well, who am I going to ski with? And that kind of made me feel badly, like I was letting him down.
Mm.
Um, And I realized, well, that's part of it. The stroke just doesn't happen to the person who has it, it's to all of the friends and family who
Yeah.
also have it inconvenience them
Yep.
or it changes the relationship with them.
It changes their life too.
It does, yes. Now, I lost a lot of friends, or at least people stopped coming to see me after a while because I couldn't go do stuff with them the way
Yeah.
we wanted to. And but other people showed up. Caregivers, I have
Mm.
some phenomenal caregivers.
Yeah.
They are great.
Yeah.
I have a personal trainer who I've been with for 11 years now, and she is just dynamo.
Wow.
Um,
And so she's been with you through the
yes,
stroke
through most of it.
this whole
Yes.
time. Okay. And yeah, it's you bring up another good point as well in terms of like how isolating stroke can be. Do you mean so
Oh, absolutely.
it shifts your entire social network,
Hmm.
and it shifts kind of the relationship that you have with yourself.
Oh,
Um,
it sure does. Really
y-
had to challenge things. I told myself from the start, after reading some books, like, okay, I'm going to be, I'm, I don't want to see myself as simply uh, restoring myself back to what I was. I
mm,
want to be the new and improved Rick. That old Rick had a flaw. He ended up having a stroke. He must have been doing something wrong. So I'm going to be the new and improved Rick, or I call it new and improved Ricky.
yeah,
So,
and finding that having to, in one regard, kind of grieve the old identity, grieve the
oh,
old,
oh, you
and
really have to
feel-
grieve. That's so true.
you're right, and then
Grief
fill
is so important.
into like a new container, and that new container or identity can maybe feel a little smaller than the old one, but there are different dimensions then to it. Do you? And it just takes
That's
so
absolutely,
long.
that's a great description right there. So
Yeah,
I can't haul my own lobster traps now by hand.
sure.
I can't hike the more difficult trail or ski
Hmm.
yet, but I'll get there somehow. I'll get something done eventually.
Yeah,
Um, all
that's
because when I do that, I can join another group of friends or create another group of friends.
yep.
Um, I'm one of the fortunate though, Jake. I'm I'm well enough off that I can afford a personal trainer, and I can afford to have massages, and I can afford to go around the world to find various treatments, which
Yeah.
I have done.
Yeah.
Um,
Why don't you walk me through then kind of what that recovery journey has kind of looked like for you? I think that would be an interesting thing to just kind of learn about and see maybe what things kind of worked well and maybe what things didn't work as well for you. What did that look like?
well, boy, there's a lot of it. I can't think of anything I didn't try. I
Yeah.
immediately wanted to try alternative practices.
Why
So,
is that?
well, I just felt that after listening to the doctors, they really didn't know what to do.
Hmm.
They said there's a lot with the Iraq war and all the PTSD guys, a lot is happening to advance the science of brain injury,
Hmm.
treatment of brain injury anyway, and the science of understanding the brain and the whole neural system. And
Yeah.
there's been a lot that's come out now. So I told myself I'm willing to try anything as long as it doesn't harm me or anyone else.
Okay.
So
Those were your criteria.
that
No.
was the criteria, and it has a potential of helping.
Okay.
So
Doesn't harm
I
me,
tried a
doesn't
lot of
harm
stuff.
others. Yeah.
I did acupuncture for several years,
Okay.
and I enjoyed it and thought it helped. Then I realized what was helping was the relationship with the acupuncturist. She was also amazing. Um,
Wow.
she and her husband were just amazing people and their children. So I just enjoyed talking with her and going through stuff as she was needling me. So
Okay.
I walked away feeling much better, but 15 minutes later, the pain was back and and the um, the immobility, I would guess I would say.
So you'd
Um,
have a moment of respite, and one component that you're referencing is that it rather was the relationship you had with the individual as opposed to necessarily the practice or the treatment that you're receiving.
right, and I found that with so many things. I did Feldenkrais the same way. I've
Okay.
spent many thousands of dollars on stuff like that.
Yeah.
I probably spent $20,000 on acupuncture,
Mm.
another 15 to 20 on Feldenkrais work, and then all the
Rick, I'm not familiar with Feldenkrais. Would you be
oh
open yeah,
sure.
sharing a little bit more about
Feldenkrais is a method of around skeletal movement,
okay.
and it was developed by Moshe Feldenkrais in
Okay.
from from Israel, and it works with a lot of it helps a lot of people with various things. World class musicians like violinists and others tend to do it. It helps them become better at their art.
Wow.
It
Okay.
helps them, gives them greater mobility and other functions.
Yeah.
So a lot of dancers and musicians take
Okay.
it, and it helps a lot of medical things too.
Okay.
I it had promised to help for stroke, but I found it once again. The person who I was working with,
Mm.
I developed a friendship with her,
Okay.
and so what I've come to conclude on much of this is that the the relief I was getting and the help was mainly through the friendships, not
Mm.
not the modality.
Wow.
So at least I concluded that, whether it was massagist or what. So I tried a lot of body work. I
Okay.
tried stretching to a big degree.
Yeah.
I went to a stretching specialist who, in the process of stretching me, and telling me how stupid I was for not accepting everything he said. He was a wacko. My relationship didn't develop very well
Okay.
because at the end, as he was stretching my hamstring, he had these two super fit young men stretching my left hamstring. Yes, and they just said, "Well, just relax into it." And as I did, it ripped my muscle, and I was in incredible pain. And he said, "Well, that's your fault. You should have told us to back off." Well, you told me not to.
You told me
Told
to
me
relax
to
into
ignore
it.
the pain. Um, So anyway, needless to say, I didn't go back to see him again. And of course, I had to pay him up front. All this you do, that was like $3,500 to
Whoa.
be injured and have a difficult time to be able to walk again for a while. And that
Then to,
injury, the scar, still affects me.
then
It's
to recover from an injury while recovering from stroke as well.
yes, right. So that was one thing. Now, probably the craziest thing I did, and the most expensive by far, is I went to Australia
Okay.
to this it's actually a gym, a clinic gym run by Ken Ware.
Okay.
Now Ken Ware is he was a bodybuilder,
Okay.
and he had his practice near a major hospital in, I think it was Abilene.
Okay.
Um, and he people who were doing physical therapy in the hospital, if they didn't improve, they would send them over to him, and he would help them perform magic. So he became very full of himself. I remember this is a bodybuilder himself. He
Yeah.
said he said that he had won the Mr. Universe,
Okay.
and I checked it out, and well, what year was that? Well, '94. Well, that's odd. When I look in the Mr. Universe site, you're not even listed as an app as a contestant.
Hmm.
Oh no, I've got it wrong. So I
Okay.
can tell you, this is a this is a narcissist who
Okay.
he did help people, but he basically bullied them into pushing themselves and believing in themselves. So I think
Hmm.
that was very important. Now his
Okay.
biggest claim to fame is he claims that he helped a guy by the name of John McClane learn to walk again. John was a paraplegic. He was he was he was basically from C7. Excuse me, T7 down. He
T7.
he was he was paralyzed. So
Whoa.
he became an incredible wheelchair athlete. In
Hmm.
fact, the first time he entered the Boston Marathon, he came in second. He said that's no good. So what do you mean? That's a hard race. And the guys that do Boston Marathon wheelchairs, they do it. They are practicing all the time. They are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I felt I should have won it. I didn't." No, he could. You would see him doing pull-ups,
Hmm.
spread with his chair strapped to himself,
Yeah.
and he was a
Wow.
very fit and very driven guy. He has a book out. I forget the name of it now.
Okay.
John McClane is his name,
Yeah.
and he he went so far as the Paralympics. He was a doubles rowing,
Okay.
mixed doubles rowing,
Wow.
and and they were they just barely lost to the Chinese. This is when it was in China. I
This
mean,
way.
by they had to be a photo finish,
Wow.
um, and he was upset. Now his teammate, she was exuberant. She
Hmm.
said, "This is incredible. We won a silver, and
Yeah.
didn't even know how to row 2 years ago. That's pretty good."
That's
Uh,
pretty good. Yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
anyway,
Rick, it's interesting. There are a few interesting themes I think that are already coming up in terms of, the first that you mentioned was, the power that the relationship and like the friendship that you're forming with
yes.
individuals and essentially like the medicine that's within that relationship and how that can provide even just a modicum of healing. And then the other one that you mentioned as well was kind of related to like the power of belief and the way that activating that belief of I'm going to get better can potentially help other individuals, at least in regards to that gentleman in Australia.
Well, absolutely. Now I forget the author's name here, but a book I finished recently, The Biology of Belief. Do you know who that is?
I just got that book last night from a
Oh, it's
dear
oh
friend of
you're
I'm
kidding.
yeah,
It is phenomenal.
it's
I
funny you
highly
mentioned
recommend
that.
reading it.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of books like that. My wife gets upset with me. She says, "Rick, why don't you read something that's fun instead of some self-help book?" well, to me, this is fun. I was always quite scientific.
Yeah.
Um, so critical thinking was very important to me.
Yeah.
And this book really helps bridge the link between spiritualism and quantum physics.
Okay. Kind of helps provide that
Yes.
connection, that
And
nexus
so,
point between them.
and I would also say what that does to me is it makes me feel that there is a force out there
Mm.
that is one and the same. And
Mm.
I link that to energy. It is energy that holds us all together and creates us.
Mm.
And that energy, I believe that energy is simply love.
Mm.
And that the Big Bang was just a huge burst of love, just creating everything. Yes. And on the planet Earth, this big rock just spinning in space, um, we again think about now the planet is made of everything is made of love. Every atom is
Mm.
more space than there is structure.
Sure.
But when you put those atoms together, you create the structure. And so there's Earth. Now the problem with that structure, with the morphology we had, is there's no way for life to develop.
Mm.
Uh, but of course, life is within that energy.
Yeah.
Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be converted
Can be
and to matter.
totally.
Yes, and I believe, well, I've come to believe that fungi is that residual. It's
Mm.
sort of the I don't want to say quarterback, but the driver that it began to break down the stones on Earth,
Mm.
and with those smaller pieces, we're able to create a organic or materials that mechanisms, bacteria and other
Sure.
mechanisms can link to. And we still have the fungi is still what connects our trees together so they can
Yeah.
talk and
Yeah.
share chemicals with each other. Uh, and so that leads me to believe that or think that psilocybin magic mushrooms may be the enabler for us to just to be able to rework our brain a bit so we
Mm.
can fix anything. Now, as they say, it could be the woman in. I think you mentioned you had talked with her. Now I'm missing her name. You was it Yule
Cool Dolan?
Yule Dolan? Yes,
Dolan. Yeah.
that as she is saying that maybe what happens when we're under the psychedelic is that it opens up a critical period for learning.
Hmm.
Now, how
Yep.
do we take advantage of that? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm currently at trying to figure that out.
Mm.
So I've been trying some microdosing
Okay.
and I've had three trips, none of which were psychedelic, none of which I
Okay.
saw any psychedelic um, um,
You
events
didn't have
or
kind of the larger
right.
psychedelic
It was
experience.
more I just felt like very stoned
Okay.
and
You know, Rick, it's interesting that you kind of bring this up. I would be curious to learn, I guess, how did kind of what motivated you ultimately in terms of kind of looking into the psilocybin and psychedelic direction? Because typically those have been pretty, cast aside, don't,
mhm.
don't do drugs from a societal perspective. And so, but now you've begun kind of microdosing, maybe doing some macrodoses. And so what was that transition like for you to say, hey, look, maybe this is something I am interested in trying?
Well, I think what it was that I read some articles in some Nature magazine, I think, that said maybe seems to be something that helps. Then when I read Gouland's piece, I was like whoa, this all makes sense to me now. But I was brought there by looking at the fungi. Now remember, my degree is in forestry, so I've had a lot of soil science, and
Okay.
And I had come to believe that the clear cutting, the commercial industrial forestry I was trained in is probably not the most productive
Hmm.
ecologically. So
Wow.
began to question my training and pick the pieces out that made sense. We always knew that it was important for mycelium to, if we could, to be able to indoctrinate the mycelium onto the roots of the seedlings. That really helped them survive better. But after reading Suzanne Simard's book on looking for the mother tree,
Hmm. Yep.
it just seemed to connect things for me. So then I was thinking, wow, if fungi is this important, which I believe it is, and it has created life on Earth in many ways, or at least that's a big theory. It created the conditions for life on Earth. Now, life on Earth might have started in one of the big deep sea vents,
Sure.
as they're saying now, and I would accept that.
Sure.
But we have fungi everywhere,
Yeah.
and watching the movie, reading the book, The Fantastic Fungi, just
Yeah.
reinforced it with me. And then
Yeah.
reading Paul Stamets stuff,
Yeah.
I began to think, I think he may be right. Um, and psilocybin may be something that can help me. And
Okay.
I believe it. I believe if nothing else, it just gets my brain on more neuroplasticity and
Sure.
very active.
Yeah.
Now, whether microdosing should be done or it should be through macrodosing, I don't know. I've been thinking that I would microdose between macrodoses,
That
and
makes
but after looking at Gulen's work, she's saying that something to be aware of is after so many macrodoses, the effect of the master key
hmm.
maybe doesn't work. So I'm a little worried about, does
Slightly.
microdosing in between cause that to happen sooner?
Hmm.
I don't know, but that's what I want to talk with you about,
Yeah.
and CJ also.
Yeah.
And I've been talking with Yeshua on it.
Good.
Um,
Rick, I appreciate kind of how you broke that down, and if I'm hearing correctly, your interest or kind of willingness to explore the psilocybin fungi direction, it really came from just a genuine place of curiosity and an openness to revise maybe some held beliefs or some things that you thought you knew, and through that kind of sequence of following that curiosity is what opened that door for you to go down this
you've
direction.
described it very well. That's perfect. Yes.
But I one thing I would be curious about though, Rick, was like if did you we mentioned earlier, the impact that stroke has on not only you but the network around you and how important the network is around you. Did you experience any kind of pushback or questioning of going down this route? Doing like what did that process look like?
Oddly enough, people have been very, very supportive.
Very
My
supportive.
primary care physician, she says, I know nothing about it, but I'm not gonna, I've got a medical degree in Western medicine. So she said, I'm not gonna second guess what the ancients have been saying. And it's been part of rituals for thousands of years. So maybe there is something there, but I can't advise you to do it. I
Correct.
just won't. But I'm not going to tell you not to do it either. And I have my physiatrist who said the same thing. She's Indian, and they're again amazing people, and they just want me to get better. They want
Yep.
to be part of it.
Yep.
That's been so good. Um, and then other friends have raised their eyebrows, and we going back to the '60s, Rick. Well, wait a moment. I I'm also a Ram Dass fan. I've been following him for 30 years too. So, um, and talk about someone who had to really experience a change in his life with a
Yes.
stroke. And,
Correct.
he was brain dead for a while and didn't even look into the abyss, he said. Didn't notice anything at all. So much for being such a spiritual leader. But amazing man that did much to help all of us, many of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So
In very important and kind of profound ways, for sure.
yes.
So, you know, thinking of kind of helping in kind of important ways, I would be curious how um, then it sounds like you've kind of worked with psilocybin, a couple times. Has this been something that has been supportive for you? Have you found it maybe not providing what you were hoping for? Like, what have those journeys looked like for you?
Well, the journeys themselves were, like I said, they were not. There was no psychedelic um, event. No,
Mhm.
I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear colors or see sounds. But
Sure, just anesthesia.
or it was just it was and some the last one I had was kind of disturbing in that it actually ramped up my pain. One thing that's
Okay.
happened to me, Jake. I had a procedure. I went to Stanford University in a study, and I had a burr hole put in the back of my skull, and then they injected over 5 million stem cells into my around my damaged brain area
Okay.
with the hopes that that would help open the brain.
Kind
And
of.
maybe it would have if I had, but I had nothing. In fact, I did when I came out of the when I came out of the surgery. I told him, well, my arm is numb. I can't even move my arm now, and I can't feel my fingers at all. And he was, don't worry, you were in a hard position, so I think it just went numb for a while. But it never came back, and the pain came in much higher. I had I had been dealing with pain to the degree of maybe up to 3, 4 on a scale of 10
Okay.
from time to time. But after
As a
that,
result of your stroke is where
well,
the pain
as
had
a result of the stroke, I guess. But
amped it up
every
to.
time something didn't work, it seemed to make my pain. I seemed to psychologically be so disappointed. The pain seemed to ramp up a little more.
Okay.
But um, I still felt I needed to keep going. And this one here, the stem cell, seemed to be the most promising from the most prominent neurologists and neuroscientists in the field. So I was very hopeful for that. And to
Okay.
then find that I lost all use of my arm and my hand, and also my foot went numb. So it just made it worse, and the pain started to come on. So then my pain really amped up from what had been a 3, 4 up to oftentimes to a 6, 8. So it doubled it. And it gets up to 8. I when I start feeling nauseous and my GI system
Yep.
just goes wild,
Yep.
then I know I call it an 8. And I've had that too much since that surgery.
Okay.
I but I try to get now. I found that the first time I did a psilocybin max dose, I think I did three. It was only three. It was 5 grams. That's right.
Okay.
And I didn't see any psychedelics. I didn't get excited about it.
Okay.
So it was just like being stoned.
Mm.
But I had very good facilitators, and
Yeah.
that was helpful. And I wasn't going to do anything without having some experienced facilitators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Just we were talking earlier, like the say even the relationship that you had with your acupuncturist. I mean, the healing that you were able to get from that modality, in one regard, it really came from the relationship you had with her. And
yes,
I think that psychedelic work is most likely no different, where the real healing, certainly the compounds, play a significant role, but I think it also highlights the role of the importance of your relationship with the facilitator.
oh, I think
Because
you're absolutely
without that,
spot on there,
you're
Jake.
missing you're
That's
missing
absolutely
the
right.
whole bucket of it.
Right.
So you're fortunate to have a relationship with the facilitator that you were working with in a way that was sounds like also healing.
Yes, it has been. That facilitator was Joshua.
Okay.
So it's been great. He's a very loving person and very caring, and he's had his journey.
Yeah.
It hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
stroke, but some other stuff equally as as
Mhm.
uh, as difficult.
Challenging. Yeah. He's one of the most spectacular individuals
He
I've
really is. Yes,
yeah. And so it's fortunate that you were able to work with such a high caliber individual. And
very
so
fortunate to find him.
totally very fortunate. And so, from your first experience, was there anything kind of noteworthy following that?
Well, yes, and following it about my pain level went down. Going into it, my pain level had been really high, but when I came out, it went from a 6.8 down to a 3.4 again, so,
Okay.
which I can tolerate. That's
Yeah.
just that's just uncomfortable
Hmm.
and irritating, but at least you can get around and do stuff.
Yeah.
And so I
And
went down, and
did that
that lasted for about 6 months, and then
okay.
it seemed to come back. Pain began to come back. So then I began to think, well, maybe I should be microdosing and do another macrodose.
Hmm.
So we did another one with a group, and the the uh, the psilocybin was stronger than I'd expected. It was I only took 3 grams, but it was stronger than the 5 grams I took before. And so, but again, no psychedelics, no psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
Just
And
I'm
did
very
you
tired, and
did you note kind of a similar reduction in your pain following the second dose?
I did, yes, but
Okay.
it was short lived.
Okay.
Um, it was just like for a few days it felt good,
Got it.
and then it began to come back again.
Hmm.
So maybe it was again the relationships, the just the ceremony itself with people that helped.
Yeah.
Maybe that had a huge impact.
It could have influenced it, certainly, but I think the other important kind of bit of this too is I think, if anyone is just kind of looking in this direction, to also understand that, these compounds aren't necessarily a silver bullet either. I
Right, I
think,
don't think they are.
yeah, and I think that's a really important piece kind of for so many people to learn and understand that they are a tool or not the solution, and they can be supportive in some ways, but it's not that you're going to go and do an experience and you're going to have your entire left side back.
Right. You know, Jake, I have always felt that it was the body itself or the mind itself, maybe it's the mind through the brain, that cured that cured anyone of anything. That the medicine just made you think you could do it, and your brain then tricked your brain and think, oh yeah, okay, I'll be fine now. I've had this medicine, or um, whatever the result may be. You know, there's been these miracle spontaneous cures.
Mhm.
Well, I do believe those are just something just clicked and the brain just really got it right, and
Yeah,
all of a sudden the cancer's gone or the
sure.
heart is perfectly fine. Now I've believed that forever,
Yeah,
and I believe it even more so now.
yeah. There's
Uh,
that
and
power of the
it's
word again.
and what it may come down to. Let me circle back a little bit and connect some. I think that comes down to love. It's
Mm,
the energy that keeps everything alive, gives life, and makes everything. So,
mm,
um, so particularly with relationships with friends and family, the experiences you have with them, all of that is what gives you the health that's necessary to do the other things.
yeah.
Um, so, and that love is throughout throughout the universe, and is inherent in all of us and everything we can see and touch.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you work it between people, it really helps a great deal.
Hmm.
It's an acceptance of being part of a community, of an important community. So I say it all comes down to community and the connections we have with each other. And those connections, of course, are love just wired between us
Yeah.
in some form. Um, so
Rick,
that's
that's a great way to like kind of connect. I think a lot of components that we've been kind of covering in terms of your journey and the healing that takes place with the quality of relationship with an individual, and that relationship, the fundamental component of that is love. And just like that's a very beautiful way to kind of articulate that. And I appreciate that kind of that outlook and insight that you have that seems to just organically be coming out of you. Is that something that you say have always carried through your life? Is that a result of some of the experiences that you've had, or are there any attribution to it to kind of some of your work with psychedelics?
well, it's been there all along. So
Good.
life experiences, I don't know. I guess. Oh, I had one thing is I had a dear friend, a former business partner of mine, who who he called me up. I hadn't talked with him in like 2 or 3 years. He called me and said, "Rick, I just wanted to know that I appreciate you more than I could ever explain to you. You have done so much for me and my family and my business. We all owe our financial success to you and what you did to help us make this happen." And he said, "So I wanted you to know that." I said, "Well, thanks, Ed." And he said, "Oh, and by the way, I have lung cancer."
Hmm.
That wasn't surprising because he smoked very heavily.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. How bad is it?" He said, "Well, it came through my skull, and so it's throughout my body now, but it's lung cancer, and we're going to begin treatments next week." But he said, I went when I had my diagnostic exams. We did all the tests, including PET scans. They said it's just completely throughout my body now, and that I have some. I need to get my. I need if I don't have it, I need to have my house in order because they say I have somewhere between 6 days and 6 months to live. So it was important for me to tell you how much I loved you, and I said I'll be down. Debbie and I'll be down to see you this weekend. So just plan on us coming. We don't need to stay with you.
Yeah.
We'll stay someplace nearby. And I went down and had a wonderful visit with him and his wife. And when we left, he was standing there, waving as we drove away. And I'm like, this is in Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm like, well, that'll be the last time I see him. Oh, so remember, 6 days to 6 months.
Yeah.
He died 13 years later. I talked to them probably every other month at least, and he responded well to every treatment. He just believed in it. He said, I believe that I'm supposed to still be here, and so this new treatment's going to work for me, and it always did. So how could you live this way? Now the doctor said that he's so far out on the bell-shaped curve for survival that he's all by himself. They've never seen anyone do that.
He's the outlier.
He's the outlier by far. So, and he said, I love life. I love the food I eat. And then his wife ended up dying of esophageal cancer. She was also a smoker. So he called me up and said, Joanne has died. She was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. She insisted that we try the surgery, and she never recovered.
Mhm.
And so he said, but I've got to keep going. I promised her I would keep going. And about 2 years later, when I was talking with him at Christmas time, he said, "Rick, I've got to go to, I'm going to go to Dallas to my wife's family's, to be with my wife's family." I said, "Wife's family? What are you talking about? Joanne is dead." He said, "Oh, that's right. I didn't tell you. I married this woman who was a caregiver for me and my wife. My wife and she were best friends, and
Wow.
she's got a chronic heart condition, meaning she could drop dead at any moment." So I looked at her one day and said, "Look, we both got one leg in the grave. Let's have this last dance together." And I just lifted my spirits and said, "This man is he's just so grateful for life and so grateful for everything that he's that's the inspiration. So
Wow.
I can do this. I just need to be grateful and embrace what's here. And the new and improved Ricky will come out at some point.
It's already here.
Um, but it's hard. It's still, I can't say it's easy. I
Yeah.
still have a lot of pain from time to time. It's difficult to walk without pain. I have a
Yes.
pain is from spasticity.
Okay.
So I still have that all the way up my left side. But
Yeah.
um, but I can get around. I can drive. I can think clearly. I can write. I
Yeah.
can enjoy my food. I can go out on boats with my, as long as I'm safe. I can't sail now. I can't help with the sailing. But at
Sure.
least I can get on the boat and sit there and appreciate it. So
You can at
I get
least
to do
yeah, get out on the
it.
water.
Yes, get on the water. And also, I have an electric recumbent trike.
Yeah.
So I've been able to get out the carriage roads in Acadia National Park. If you haven't been here, we have 59 miles of what are called carriage roads. They were engineered and built by Rockefeller,
Okay.
John Rockefeller, and they're just beautiful. Only they're restricted to only initially it was just horse carriages and walking, but now they allow bikes on. And they have just 2 years or 3 years ago, the Park Service decided to allow level one electric bikes.
Okay.
In my case, a trike. So a friend of mine who had Parkinson's just got me into it, and we started biking on the roads. It's just wonderful. So I can get out these carriage roads. They're beautiful, winding along the ocean and deep along the mountains, around the mountains here. So I get to do that. And my personal trainer just reminds me every time I'm out there, she says, Rick, just at some point, just let yourself laugh. Just laugh hilariously. And if people think you're crazy, I'll
Let
just tell them, so what?
yeah. Let him.
Because that'll make you feel better. And I do that. And it does. So, and then there were three of us who were riding these electric trikes. And so we, together with our safety riders, decided to set up a nonprofit to give other people the opportunity to ride on the carriage roads. So we have what we call the MI Wheelers.
Okay.
It was taken from I think Denmark, where they have this basically it's a wheelchair that attaches to an electric trike that you have to pedal. And so we bought three of those. They
Okay.
cost like $17,000 a piece.
Cool.
Now we've been able to buy three of them, and we take people out during the season. People who are very older people, and people who are disabled. And it's so wonderful to watch their faces as they get out. They say, "I never thought I'd get out here again. This is wonderful." So we enjoy doing that, and that makes you feel good too.
Totally.
In just being active in community, doing what you can do.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Giving back and sharing that love that emanates from you back into the community and just working in one regard, kind of like the mycelium that you were discussing
well,
earlier.
that's right. That's right. All those connections,
Transmit
right?
it and share
Oh,
it through.
good. That's a great way to. I like that with the hands. My left hand doesn't want to work right, but
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's pretty good.
But
So
it's not bad. I can do some stuff. Like I
some,
said, I
yeah.
can drive my car, so I can go
Yeah.
to my own appointments. Now I can't. I don't drive very far. Very uncomfortable doing that.
Yeah.
But at least I can drive 20 miles radius,
Great.
um, and that's great. I get to do much of what I can do.
Yeah.
Now it still puts a great burden on my wife, but she's accepted it, and
Great.
although I
Yeah.
have to accept that I irritate her from time to time, but I guess that happens with all relationships.
Sure. But yeah, we're
Unfortunately, I get up earlier, and when I can't put my sock on, she'll get out of bed and do that and
wow.
kind of be grumpy at me. why do you,
Well,
why'd you have to get up so early? You could wait, you know.
you
Now
know,
I
I,
sim-
I'd
now
be
I
in.
simply take my sock and put it in my pocket. And when she comes downstairs, I let her put it on.
At a more
Little things like
reasonable
that.
point. Yeah. Yeah. Where would we be without the Debs in our life? You know.
Yes. Now, do you have a partner also, Jake?
I do. My husband Patrick. And
Oh,
he
that's right. You mentioned this before.
yeah, and
And you have a
he
son too, don't you?
no kids on our journey. We
Oh,
have
I
a lot
thought
of
you did.
nieces and nephews.
Okay, that's what you said.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And yeah, similar like Deb, like Patrick was just an absolute godsend for me.
I'm sure.
Not only in the acute phase, but it's that long tail of recovery, and people like that are just so special in this world, and those are aspects that I think are just so essential for allowing the healing and the recovery. Do you mean
That is
whatever
so true. Yes.
possible? It
Now, are you back? You fully back to skiing and doing stuff you were doing, everything you were doing?
You know what? I am Rick.
That's great.
I'm incredibly fortunate to say that and to be able to um kind of go back.
Especially since you couldn't get the TPA or any
Correct.
treatment for a few weeks after the stroke.
Yeah, there was yeah, in my case there was no TPA, there wasn't any intervention. I was able to get aspirin about 2 days later because I had quite the headache to say the least.
I'm
Um,
sure.
and so yeah, for me I didn't receive any specific treatment. I think that really speaks, Rick, I think, to the power of youth. I was young, 29 at the time, and so my body was primed and fortunate, and my mind was primed and fortunate to recover um, in that way. But certainly I think, are a lot of things that helped kind of contribute to that. But yeah, this weekend was up skinning with some friends up Aspen Highlands for closing weekend, and
Oh,
just
Aspen Highlands is beautiful.
yeah, and it was I was so happy the whole day, and there was really something special to just being able to move, and I just felt an immense amount of kind of gratitude for that. And so very, very fortunate in that regard. But I think the last question I would have, Rick, would thank you so much for just everything that you've shared, and kind of your openness, and also your courage for sharing your story, sharing your journey. I would be curious what might be your words of wisdom or words of advice to other individuals who might be, just beginning this healing journey.
Well, I would say one thing that's come home should have been clear anyway, but I mean, financially, I've been very fortunate. So I would say what has driven home to me is it doesn't matter what you have. It's about the people you love and the experiences you have with them. Everything else is just clutter or noise, whether it's a home or a boat or whatever. If it doesn't enhance your experience with those you care for, then it's just clutter or noise. And so accept with gratitude the help people want to give you. It's a gift. People, when they give you something, it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Like when they open the door for you,
Yeah.
or they pick up my walking stick. I know it makes them feel better, and
Yeah.
so that makes me feel better. I feel badly that someone feels they have to help me, but
Mm.
on the not too badly, because it allows someone to
Yeah.
give something, to be kind, and that makes them feel better also. That's
Mm.
another thing. Accept the gifts from all the people, even people you may not enjoy, even if politically they're very different
Sure.
than you are.
Yeah.
Mm, It's amazing the number of people who they just want to help and
Mm.
accept that help and embrace it and give it back. Just give back what you can to others
Mm.
and just recognize it's your journey. It gets to be interconnected with a lot of other journeys
Mhm.
and celebrate all of those.
Rick, that's really special and unbelievably powerful. That resonates in so many ways. Just the acceptance of help, I think, can be so remarkably hard. But yeah,
Oh, it can be.
you hit the nail on the head, though, that those helping it, they feel good helping,
Right.
and and
Jake, I'm one of 8 children. And
okay,
my father he was one of those people who always shouted and hollered and complained about how hard he had to work in order to feed 8 kids and run a household.
yeah,
And he would talk about how successful he must be in order to do that. And then he would call everyone ungrateful kids. Why don't you get out there and mow the lawn or whatever? So when I was 7 years old, I was mowing the lawn. I just didn't want to hear him shouting so much. Just get it done. Um, but I taught myself, I said right from a very young age, I'm going to learn to do these things myself so that I can be independent as soon as possible and be completely independent. That carried through to my work. So I was very accomplished at a lot of different things. So, and in business, it was just, I worked hard, yes, but I think I worked smartly also.
yeah,
And that really paid off, mainly in establishing other relationships.
yeah,
But so it was so hard for me to have the stroke and suddenly have to depend on others, particularly have to depend on my wife so much to drive me to every appointment and to do all the cooking and cleaning. And but if you accept it and give thanks for it to the people. I recently had a friend die, a close friend, and it just happened like within 3 weeks. She wasn't feeling well, went to the doctors, they diagnosed a inoperable cancer, and she was dead in 3 weeks. And for her obituary that she wrote, she said, "I don't want anyone to mourn me. I want you to just hug those you love and tell them you love them every day and often. That's a gift you can give me." And I thought, what a great gift that was that she gave people. Just make sure you tell people that you care for them. Maybe
yeah.
the last time you ever see them. And so I'd say that's similar to what we have here.
Mhm.
Just embrace